we as coaches are stuck between a rock and a hard place where we've got that old school way of thinking where, hey, suck it up. Hey, we did it this way, so you're going to do it this way. But the young athletes don't think that way. And they speak a totally different language, and our inability or our ability to speak that language is going to be paramount in terms of relaying to these kids what we want. And sometimes we do a terrible job of opening up that dialogue where they don't want to hear some of those stories about us. They don't care. And so it's our job is to figure out what pushes their buttons.
Welcome to the Captains and Coaches Podcast. We explore the art and the science of leadership through the lens of athletics and beyond. I'm your host, Tex McQuilkin, and today I travel to Tampa, Florida to sit down with my friend and mentor, Raph Ruiz, a master strength and conditioning coach. Raph revolutionized his approach early in his career when he realized that getting athletes stronger in the weight room wasn't translating to better performance on the field. This led him down a path to understanding movement and accelerated skill acquisition. I first met Raph in 2009, attending a seminar. I would then get the opportunity to lead and coach and teach all over the world, so very grateful for that. And in 2014, I decided to go all in. I reached a ceiling in my collegiate college strength and conditioning coach career, and I had enough of it. But I wanted to understand coaching. I wanted to understand movement and connection with athletes. So reached out to the best in the world. I went down, moved to Tampa, and spent 4 months day in and day out, 5 a.m. all the way to 8 p.m. with the Ruiz family, aiming to understand movement. I am so grateful for that time. There's not a lot that I can say to Raph other than thank you. So this conversation, it was so rich. We had a 5:30 a.m. morning workout. Then we sat down for another 2.5 hours for this podcast. I decided to split it up into part 1 and part 2. Part 1, we dive into Raph's career, the early stages when he went from collegiate athlete into collegiate strength and conditioning coach. And from there, all the ideas and questions he started to ask that led to his understanding. We also sprinkle in some experiences early here from my time at Tampa. So rich conversation. This is just part 1. I don't want to delay it any longer. So now let's hand it off to Raph, who helps us raise the game. Ready, and doing good?
Yeah, sure.
Leaning back, I feel,
Yeah.
I got to get a set of these.
I had to jam it back a little bit because mine was like,
I'm recovering in this room after this workout.
you'll hear some.
Well, I hope not. Luke jokes he puts my podcast on so he can put the kids to sleep. Well, awesome. Just like old times, man. I love it here in Tampa. Humid. It's just like Houston and DC. I was born in it. I was molded by it. And just Tampa feels like home. And a big part of that is coming to hang out with you and the family.
Appreciate that, brother. Appreciate that.
Yeah, dude, I met you in 2009, coming off of collegiate athletics, stepping into the role of college lacrosse coach.
Has it been 2009?
2009.
Wow.
And yeah, attended the seminar with you and Jay Welly, and then took all of that 16 hours of information.
What seminar was that?
Number 5.
Where was it?
Oakland, California.
Gotcha. I remember that one.
Oh, yeah. We had a star-studded cast there.
Absolutely.
Freddie C., Wolf.
Robbie. That was, I think, the first time I ever hung out with Robbie.
Yeah. And Danger Wad, Jesse.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That was a good group.
It was a great group, man. 40+ people. And I say this often, that was my first step into strength and conditioning. Because before it's like high school football, we're lifting weights. College lacrosse, we didn't have a weight room. I just lifted because that's all I knew. And then it was like, all right, step into a role of coach.
So you're referring to a first time into a system.
Yeah.
Not just let me get into a gym and move some weights and what I feel like versus there's a solidified system. Here's what I need to do. And as opposed to what I feel.
Yeah.
Okay. Got it.
Which was always bench press.
Always bench press.
Yeah.
Leg press, bench press.
A professional performance coach.
Mm.
Then I mean, it was great time. So it was teaching, and I mean, you were leading. It was so much speed work back in the seminar that day. So it was, I mean, from the ground up, literally, because I mean, we were working with very sagittal, plain fitness individuals. I feel like me and Jesse were the only two like field sport athletes in that group,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and it was just a very immersive, awesome experience that really changed the trajectory of my coaching career.
And it's always interesting because it's always interesting because it's a you don't know what you don't know until you don't know. And everybody, even now with social media, the common thing is, have you seen your significant other run full speed? Have you been following those?
No, but I need that just test. That's my first date rule now.
Hilarious. It's hilarious. So these people are literally going, honey, run full speed, and they'll just film their husband run across, and then he'll film her, and it's just hysterical laughing because they've never seen, and you just don't know what full velocity is. We watch football, we watch baseball, we watch all of this, and in your head you go, yeah, I could do that, but you can't. You can't unless you adequately prepare for it within a training system. So it's always funny
Yeah.
to see that.
The and I want to go back to the start of your coaching career. So footballer, Sam Houston State Bearcats, and then you stepped into the role of assistant strength and conditioning coach, Ben Pollard, and I know Benny Wiley was in that coaching crew with you
Mhm.
and playing days.
Yeah.
So what was the click, the moment for you when it was moving away from back squats and back surgeries to now skill acquisition?
It was always interesting to me because Ben was amazing at getting guys really strong. We had some unbelievable numbers in the weight room, and it wasn't until I got out of playing and took the coach's eye, and to sit there and go be so fired up watching athlete X go, wow, 30% increase in bench, 30% increase in cleans, 30% increase in squats, and all of these numbers, and then it not translate onto the field. And as a coach, me personally as a coach, because not all coaches look at it from that same lens, I felt like I'd failed.
Mm-hmm.
Because in my mind, why are we doing this? Why am I asking somebody to invest so much resources to get these numbers and to put my name on the record board if it's not going to equate to me what to me is the most important thing, and that's how you play, how you display skills. And so that first year was a big eye opener for me, and I had to start to figure out how do I bridge that gap, me personally. And that's really what started me on this journey. Um, that's half of the journey. The other half was watching my athletes get injured. And that was a huge thing for me because I've been blessed. I've never had a severe injury. And so seeing guys that were projected to get drafted, blow out a knee, and watching them go from 500-pound back squat to, Raph, help me stand up.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a humbling thing. And I wanted to figure out how could I get these guys back to playing speed. And then as I would just sit back and watch them move, I noticed, wow, these guys that were injured had certain things, certain tendencies, certain habits, and I would say, wow, this guy doesn't have that, and I would look at myself and go, wow, my knees doesn't do that, or my foot does do that, and then I started to kind of just observe, and the more observations I did, the more I noticed these patterns, and I started to say, hey, oh, wait a minute, look at Mark. He has that same knee thing that Steven has, but he hasn't blown his knee out yet. And so then I would start to go, you know what? I wonder if I can nip this in the bud. And then we started to do that. And then we noticed that a lot of our injury rates started to drop. We started to do much better. Um, and then in the weirdest way was the guys started performing better.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, hey, we're not doing any we're not doing any pro short shuttle, but my guys are changing directions quicker. And so in my head, I go, we're on to something here. Let's try to figure this out and let's try to develop a system around it.
Mm-hmm. And then how is it presenting these new ideas or questions to the coaching staff that you were working with at the time?
At the time, it wasn't as difficult as I imagine other scenarios could be, because Ben was amazing. Coach Pollard was absolutely amazing. Um, he took me in his office and said, you teach speed really well. And he said, that's yours. And I remember sitting there as a 21 year old, like, oh my God. Because at that point in time, we had a couple of guys who were rated high. And, I would be an assistant coach helping guys, and I would see these scouts from the Vikings and the Green Bay and so on, and coming and be like, hey, how is so and so? And they would ask. And then I remember that was my immediate thought, like, that's a lot of pressure to sit there and go, okay, well, John is projected to go in the top, in top 4 rounds. Hey, Raph, you got him, and because I had no experience with draft prep, no experience with any of that, I just knew what was in my head.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a perfect world scenario. God bless that we weren't Alabama. We weren't a Texas. We weren't. It was a situation that a Coach Pollard, in any other situation, probably wouldn't do that for a guy like me. He
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't be like, hey, Chris, take the reins. They're all yours. But being in that situation really allowed me to flourish. It gave me the confidence to do. They were like, hey, do what you want to do. And I had enough of a conservative balance to say, above all else, do no harm. But I also was young enough to say, hey, let's try it. Let's go do something. Let's figure some new stuff out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and similar experience. Took the materials that I learned from y'all, brought it back to my D3 team, and I was still coaching sport practice and then leading these sessions, almost volunteering and pulling the guys into the training and learning to communicate what I learned, because that takes reps. Okay, here's how I understand it, but here's an athlete. I need to translate it. And what was beneficial for me was using lacrosse to communicate movement, because they understood that language, but now I almost needed to install a new language.
Correct.
So now, what was that process for you of just deciphering, distilling, synthesizing what was in your mind and what you saw into words for these dudes to execute?
I will tell you that it comes down to, I never played baseball, but the beautiful part about baseball is it's a game of failure. And everybody who's ever played will tell you that no game will humble you more than baseball. Um, with that being said, I had to make so many mistakes, and I wasn't afraid to make those mistakes. So as I'm trying to communicate with these, I will tell you that, yeah, when you're young, you find that one person that goes, wow, they get it. And you jump on that and you go, yeah, you know what, Johnny, great job, great job, great job. And then you kind of forget that there's 99 others. And so what you tend to have is 1/3 of the athletes, you have a clear, direct line of communication. They understand what you're trying to get out of it. And we have this trust. You have a middle third there that they might get it, some might not get it. And then you have this bottom third that you are speaking a foreign language to.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not always sport specific. So in your instance, what you just said is, hey, my 1/3 and 2/3 all speak lacrosse. But what you find is at an early age, a lot of these kids, they might play baseball, and this is a baseball training facility, but that's not their love. And so if I go in guns blazing saying, yeah, baseball, 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 but the kid loves basketball, or the kid loves football, or the kid loves boxing, or the kid loves swimming, then you have to be able to adjust to that. And I would say, as a coach who's lived long enough and had enough opportunities, adjustability is your prime thing. Is literally just saying, we have this tendency where we have this huge amount of pride in what we do, and we have this pride in our quality of work. And sometimes what I always try to relay to Raider is, everything, it's the yin and the yang. Everything has a positive, and you should acknowledge that positive, but you should also acknowledge there's a negative to everything. There's for every team that is really, really fast, and we try to develop these fast teams. Well, what you also understand is fast teams are susceptible to the traps, to the counters, to um, overspeed, to I can get somebody to be really confident in overplay, and I run a reverse in the other direction. And next thing you know, I've used your strength against you. So in this instance, I would tell young people is is just take a huge step back and ask the athlete if they understand. If they don't understand, oftentimes we get upset, especially if you are an accomplished athlete, and it's always interesting, or an accomplished coach, that why don't you get this? I don't understand why you don't understand this. And we get frustrated, but we never take that veil off and say, hey, look, okay, what are you feeling? What's going on in your head? What are you thinking about? And sometimes that's all it takes, just to develop that better relationship, just for them to go, oh, okay, Raph wants to know. Because sometimes if I come into a scenario where, hey, this is Raphael, look at all these people that he's trained, look at all the success. Well, people go, oh, well, he knows all this shit. Oh, he thinks he's too good. And then I have to figure out, how can I break that down? How
Mm-hmm.
can I get somebody to say, hey, you know what, Raphael, he's not a bad guy. He may look like an asshole, but he's not a bad dude. So it's one of those situations that sometimes you have to be able to understand the yin and the yang, and the positive and the negatives to everything, and be ready to adjust.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't adjust, there's a whole slew of half to one third that you will just miss. You're going to lose them, and they're always going to give you their best average effort.
Yeah.
So,
And then sticking with working with the team, I imagine there was still drills and scenarios, and then, which we're going to get into next, when you worked into the professional level, you were almost asked to do things as a coach that you knew philosophically you didn't necessarily believe in, but it's what head honcho wanted to do.
mm-hmm.
So then what was your approach there? Was it still that do no harm?
100%. Again, great scenario, because the quote unquote opposing, and again, I was young, but I knew my place. So I knew, walking into a situation with the Bucks, that I was not the head guy, and I knew my place, and my place was to read a workout card and to set weights. And so I made it my job to be the very best at that. I wasn't going to ruffle any feathers. I'm going to learn what you're doing. If I take that with me, or what I take and how much of that I take with me, that's a different story. But what I'm not going to do is not be well versed in your training system when all is said and done. And the beautiful part about what we do as strength and conditioning coaches is you become this counselor, you become this ear. And the moment that happened, all of a sudden they go, oh, Raph, what are you doing? Oh, well, this is what I do. Oh, well, tell me more, teach me more, where do you do this at? And next thing you know, it became, one guy, hey, I'll meet you at your place, hey, I'll meet you. And it was never, I never try to poach anybody. I never try to go, hey, this is stupid. I never badmouth any training system. But what I try to do is to literally make myself invaluable within that system,
Mm-hmm.
whatever it is. So I was the one who was always there. I would show up first. I would beat him there. I would finagle security, get there, and I would sweep the gym. And all of a sudden, my boss would show up, and he'd be like, "Oh, great job!" And I wanted to make sure I made it my job to make it impossible for him to not hire me. That
Mm-hmm.
was literally my focus, was, when all is said and done, regardless of whether I had intention of staying there or not, my focus 100% was, I'm going to make it impossible for you to not hire me.
Yeah, and that highlights one of the key things I want to get into, which is professionalism. Time out. Let's take a second to talk about the Old Bull training program. This is an online strength and conditioning program that I'm writing for myself and handing to you. I'm a former collegiate athlete, strength and conditioning guinea pig for the last 15 years. I'm feeling every game, I'm feeling every training session and exploratory work that I've been through. Now I take all those lessons and the feeling and the pressure and the corrections, and then I hand it off to you. What I love most about the program and highly encourage people to do is film their lifts, post it into the feed, and then we give them fast feedback to help them correct those lifts. Why I love that, everyone else gets to see those lifts, they see the coaching cues, and they're starting to learn and develop their own coordination and maybe seeing something that someone else is doing that they can feel for. That's the beauty of this program. It's constantly evolving, and we're having fun there. That's also the thing. We're having fun. There's a great leaderboard, and people are finding others to compete with. I love the program. I'm out there doing it with you, and I encourage you to train with me, not for me. For a free trial, 7 days, click the link in the show notes. Try the Old Bull program. And now, back to the show. Ready, and break. When was the moment where you just turned pro as a coach, where you identified and had pride in the sense that I am a coach?
I don't know if there's any one single time. Again, from a positive and negative standpoint, I always felt like I didn't belong. I always had an inferior complex when it came to if an athlete asked me a question that I didn't know, that bothered the crap out of me. It really, just to my core. But I was humble enough to say I don't know, but I'm going to figure it out. And so I always just okay, figure it out, figure it out. I don't know if I was ever. I don't know if I am even today in 2025 with the amazing things that I've been blessed with. To this day, I don't. I could walk into any scenario and be like, God, I really don't belong here. Like this doesn't. I don't deserve this opportunity to work with whatever. Um, but I always ask myself, okay, so well then, idiot, get prepared. Like learn. Like let's figure this out. Um, there were a couple of moments at Tampa where there were a couple of big interviews where I would get mic'd up for some big networks that were showcasing the athletes. At that point, I was like, oh crap, this is serious. Like, this is kind of a big deal. Um, our first big fight with Tarver was a huge deal because I didn't grow up in the boxing world. I grew up with martial arts, but I never my first foray into that was the moment that we did the rematch for Roy Jones Tarver. And I watched the first one, and I grew up as a Roy Jones fan through the 90s. That was, I mean, that is a bad man. And I remember Tarver's agent calling me, and I didn't know anything about it, but it's Al Heyman. As I grew into the sport, Al Heyman is the man when it comes to entertainment. He is the who's who. He is the Wizard of Oz behind the curtain of all of celebrities. But I didn't know that. And so I remember when he had called and then he flew down and met me, and we sat there and talked, and he goes, okay, this is the scenario. He goes, after meeting, he goes, let me talk to my client. Let me talk to my client. Let me talk to my client. And after finally we sat there, and he goes, all right, he goes, if this is what we want to do, we need you to get Antonio Tarver ready to fight Roy Jones. And I remember sitting there like, what?
How much time?
Yeah. I mean, it was serious. And I was like, because I'm a Roy fan. And that's like a weird, in my mind, getting him ready, the whole time getting him ready for that fight, in my head, he's going to get knocked out. In my head, like, God, this is going to be terrible. This is going to be terrible. But it didn't stop me from trying to do a better job. Make it the worst, take it a worse scenario, and maybe he's not going to get knocked out. Maybe he's just going to get beat up pretty bad. Okay, maybe he's not going to get beat up. Maybe he's going to go to a decision. So it was always trying to fight for a better position, fight for a better position. And I remember we do the whole camp. I mean, we do the whole prep work up to it. And then he goes, okay, we're going to fight camp. We're going to go to Vegas for 4 weeks. So we go to Vegas, we check into the hotel, and I remember getting him ready. And it's gut wrenching to take somebody from 230 to 175. Like that is a scary, scary moment for anybody. Anybody in wrestling understands that. But to take wrestling and then to say, because I made the mistake of saying, ha ha ha, what happens if he doesn't make weight? And they go, well, we'll probably get sued for $20 million. And I was just like, and so I remembered that last day, and we're creeping. It's like 185, and then it's like 182, and then it's like 180, and we're like right there. And I'm just like, and the last little bit is struggling to come off. And I remember just like, God, this is not going to happen. And before the weigh-in, we've done all our due diligence, and we put him in a sweatsuit and we put him in the sauna. And I have him just doing some light step ups, some light jogging, and he looks dead. Like, I mean, from 230 all the way down to 170, and I'm sitting there like, please don't die, like don't die. And then finally he comes out. We have our own scale. We put the scale down, um, towel him off, and it says 175, but it's not an official scale. So we don't know. But I'm like, okay. So we go upstairs, and all I know is he's going to get on a scale. And if it says 175, the fight is on. If it doesn't, then they give you 2 hours, and then you can try to get more off. And if it doesn't, the fight's off. Then the belts, none of that, all of that is off. And so we go up there. Well, they're telling us where to go, and they go, okay, go to this ballroom. So they open the doors to the ballroom. There's probably 1,000 people in there, and there's a big stage up there, and I could see the scale, and I'm like, this is for the whole world to see. I mean, this weigh-in is televised. I've never, because in football you do your job, and then you're like, hey, good game, guys, go get it.
Yeah.
In any other sport, but in boxing, it's Tarver and then me. I mean, you're right there with him. And I remember walking up, and my heart is racing. I mean, it's just racing. And then there's like this big, they're like, oh, well, we're not ready yet, so we're going to do him last. And so then there's arguing, and I'm like, he's getting on the scale right now because I need to get him rehydrated. We gotta get going. And so after all this hubbub, and then finally they go, okay, let's go. And then they strip down and they get on there, and it's just me and Tarver on this stage. And then the fight judge, or the representative from the belt. And so they look, and then it ended up being 175. And I
Wow.
remember just like, oh, yeah, it was, and then my job is over. After that, it's really over, so to speak. And then it shifts to damage control. And
Getting
then it's
back.
like, yeah, let's go, let's get some. So immediately I already had a water bottle that's got my hydration stuff in it. And I've got some aminos that we get them before he even gets dressed. I'm like, start drinking this, take these. And then we go to the restaurant, and we start filling up. Now they have new rules that you can only be, depending on what organization, but they can only be, say, within. They agree prior to. It's like when you do the day of the fight, because this is the day before the fight, you can only go up by 10 pounds.
Oh,
Stuff
okay.
like that. So the bigger organizations will say if he weighs in at 175 on Friday, Saturday night, he can't be more than 185, kind of thing. Um, but I will tell you, it was interesting through the rest of the career because we really did a great job fine tuning it. He built a lot more lean body weight. He would get bigger and bigger and bigger. So by the time he was filming Rocky, he was blown up.
Mason
And
the
then
Lion Dixon.
yeah, and then he was like, hey, Raph, I got to fight at 175. I was like, oh, God. Um, but we did a much better job of getting to even to the point by the time that he had retired, we were getting down into like the 173 and feeling great. He didn't look emaciated. He didn't look drawn. Um, it was a little bit better science by that point.
Yeah. Some interesting non-science experience with Tarver when he came to train when I was with you at Tampa. The first one, you would always pair me with him, which I always thought was hilarious because how tall is he?
6'2".
6'2".
Yeah.
And so it's like, all right, well, I got this professional athlete. I'm responsible for everything. And when we're matching up, we're not matching up. So I'm getting extra calf raises in on all the extra stuff. And then we were doing armadillos, something on the ground and ab work. And then he's wearing just basketball shorts with pockets, $5,000 cash, just falls out of his basketball shorts. And I'm looking at the cash.
Did that match yours?
Oh, I didn't have 5,000. I'm looking at the open bay doors, looking at the cash and thinking, all right, who's faster, me or Raph? So just hilarious. So then it's like, excuse me, sir, you dropped this, and just hand him this change. And then anytime he'd come in and like take a minute to breathe and you needed him going,
Absolutely.
just put up the phone and start walking him through the dizzy lunge or the IT band slow twisting kick.
Mm-hmm.
And you weren't even recording. It's just like, oh, camera's on, dialed in, and then he was just moving.
Because that's what you learn about him.
Yeah.
That's what you learn. Sometimes, guys, he is Showtime. That is why he does what he does. And in that instance, I learned pretty quickly that he is very well spoken, and he really practiced that. He prides himself of his image when other people are looking. And I thought to myself, you know what? Let's put this out there. Let's use this as a tool, and it works. It works great. Then I started to learn just leave it rolling. So I would just film and not hit stop, because he'd be like, "Oh, dude, let me see that." And then one time I got caught. I was like, "Oh, dude." I'd be like, "Dang it, it wasn't recording."
Storage.
Yeah, I lost my storage. Oh, dude, it's fuzzy. But then I learned just boom, and then I would play it back and whatever it was that he did. But it is sometimes you learn what pushes different people's buttons, and I think that's really an intuitive coach will start to do that. I've had athletes. It's always interesting. You talk about the yin and the yang. I've had athletes that have yelled at me because where you almost do that coaching baby talk. Like, "Hey, great job. Hey, you're doing great. Hey, oh, it's okay. Don't worry about it." Well, I've had an athlete who was an All-American setter, and she turned around and she goes, "Raph, don't blow smoke up my ass." She goes, "If I'm not doing right, you tell me." And I was like, "Okay, let's do it." And I could have continued down that road, but I would have lost that athlete. And now all of a sudden she put it out there, and it was like, you know what? 100%. You're absolutely right. Let's make sure that and some people can't do that. Some people, because of the age that we are in, we as coaches are stuck between a rock and a hard place, where we've got that old school way of thinking where, hey, suck it up. Hey, we did it this way, so you're going to do it this way. But the young athletes don't think that way. And they speak a totally different language, and our inability or our ability to speak that language is going to be paramount in terms of relaying to these kids what we want. And sometimes we do a terrible job of opening up that dialogue where they don't want to hear some of those stories about us. They don't care. And so it's our job is to figure out what pushes their buttons.
Timeout. Coach, are you banging your head against the wall trying to motivate athletes who seem mentally soft? You're yelling, they're shutting down. You're punishing, they're checking out. Sound familiar? Here's the thing, the game has changed, but most of the coaching education hasn't caught up yet. They're locked in on teaching programming and not people-ing. In my new course, Why They're Not Listening, Coaching Today's Athlete, you'll learn how to connect with your team and transform disconnected players into captains who perform under pressure. Stop fighting your athletes and start developing them. Go to listen.captainsandcoaches.com to enroll. That's listen.captainsandcoaches.com. Transform your coaching today. Now, back to the show. Ready, and break. A big theme that I took away in the sense that the different age groups that we were working with, different skill levels from Olympians, professional boxers, down to middle school kids.
Mm-hmm.
And the big theme that I loved was creating a sense of urgency, meaning we have 60 minutes, we have 90 minutes in this session. When I ask you to move, you got to move.
Mm-hmm.
And that it came at an interesting time because we were so involved with the CrossFit community. I was traveling the world coaching coaches that were in CrossFit scenarios how to then coach athletes.
Mm-hmm.
And then what I really struggled with was, okay, yes, there's perceived effort, then there's measurable intensity, but then when you described urgency of your expectation, when we move. It's not holding anything back.
Correct.
So that really was a light bulb moment in aiming to take it in. So within the theme of urgency, where was the origin of that word in your communication to then just be a theme throughout, no matter if we're working with an Olympian or a kid just getting into training?
It all depends, because what I've started to learn over the years, and it's really accentuated over the past 13 years for obvious reasons, my son, but the sense of urgency is completely different for a kid. So from Zia's age, 6, to right now, Raiders age, Raiders coming out of what we call that very first stage 1. That is really just can I build up enough tolerance to discomfort so that they can listen to me? And that's a different sense of urgency. That is a sense of urgency that really has everything to do with rules.
Mm-hmm.
I need you to move fast enough where you don't get yelled at. And that's not a bad thing, because that's how a kid operates. Everything is off of negative reinforcement.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what we do. It's, as a kid, everything is no, don't do this, don't do that. Don't do this because you're going to get yelled at. Well, that's just the way that they're raised. Even me as a coach, I have to deal with the fact that that's how their parents raised them. Is it right? Is it wrong? Who knows? But it is the reality of that is how that kid speaks. And so right now, the sense of urgency is I need to do just enough where I don't draw negative attention to myself. I don't get yelled at. At that point, then they start to get to where, hey, now the sense of urgency. For the longest time, I made the mistake of trying to drive being a teammate into Raider. And that's a foreign concept to young people. They just don't understand that yet. They haven't suffered together. Him and his teammates, as a team, they don't do team strength and conditioning. And I say that as they haven't learned to suffer together yet. So until you learn to systematically suffer together, your sense of teammateship doesn't mean anything. You might as well speak a foreign language to them. Now Raider is at a point where he's starting to understand that. And so we shift that sense of urgency to things like team totals.
Mm-hmm.
And so now as I introduced him prior to, but it had no effect on him. Now on a fun Friday, I'll say, okay, we have team totals. And so if we say we have 30 reps between you and I, and you do 5, well, now Raider starts to understand, oh crap, I just dumped 15 reps onto my teammate, or whatever the case may be is. And he now has empathy for that. He understands that. So now that sense of urgency is no longer, hey, I'm not going to get yelled at by my coach. I might get yelled at by my teammate. My teammate might rip my head off. And so now it becomes more of an empathy towards one another as teammates, versus right now, prior to that, everything is, oh wow, look at so and so getting yelled at, ha, 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 ha. But now it's at a point where, hey, Raph, you know what? If you present your glove earlier, then maybe you'll feel that and you won't get yelled at. Hey, thanks, Raider. I appreciate that. And so that's where he is. So that sense of urgency now becomes a team sense of urgency, because he knows that if if Chris doesn't get yelled at, then I don't have to put on my track shoes and run foul poles.
Yeah.
And so that urgency takes on a whole different meaning. And then eventually, when they start to develop some really high level stuff, Raider doesn't understand anything about, and when I say nothing, money. So now all of a sudden, when a kid, a 24-year-old kid, is up for contract renegotiation, there's a whole different sense of urgency that nobody else can really touch prior to that. And so when we talk about leveling up that urgency, it's literally trying to find what level that they are currently, and then trying to get them to transition and do amazing with that and earn an A, and then eventually get into that next phase and then get into that next phase.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to do because there's so much overlap, there's so much difference between, I mean, from the 13-year-old that Raider is, this is the same as the 13-year-old that another kid is there. It's a completely different world for a lot of these guys.
Yeah. And one thing, I still coach middle school and high school lacrosse. So I want to stay in the trenches to understand the kid. So when I'm teaching lessons and communicating, it comes from real life examples. So I took a lot of notes this past season coaching at a private school, and I was listing these culture killers and seeing envy, right? Because there's different socioeconomics at the schools. So nice cars versus the hand-me-down cars. So envy, resentment for playing time, and all these different things. But then the biggest, and it took me a whole season to just really head scratch and come to the conclusion that there was a sense of entitlement,
Mm-hmm.
to where the best guys on the team, they chose not to attend practice because they felt they weren't getting better at practice because they were the best guys on the team. So that just way of thinking, it blew my mind, because I'd never thought that ever.
Correct.
So it was lift up if I was the best, which I never was, but if I was the best person, aim to lift up so that we can go win a game.
Mm-hmm.
So now in working with such wide age ranges and levels, from the tip of the spear all the way to, 2-year-olds running around and observing some stuff, like these natural human tendencies that are almost represented and taught through biblical text to protect us from. How do you feel the sense of the weight room, training together, or a good leader and coach can help almost prepare for these inevitable culture killers that come up?
What's really interesting that I've learned with young athletes is, I've learned, and I'm not saying it's wrong on any standpoint, but there is an inevitable natural hierarchy of development that sometimes we as coaches try to quench. And to me, for instance, sometimes Raider is mean. Sometimes he's an asshole to his teammates. I can't quench that fire because right now he's at a point where he's trying to learn self identity. And so, do I want Raider to be overly nice and pretend to like somebody? Or do I want him, if you feel like you want to be an asshole, and now he doesn't like you, you've lost a friend? Lesson learned. And so I always catch myself trying to let the natural course take its toll. Um, in addition to that, what I try to do is, if I see something again, if there is a positive and negative to everything, say you really, really want a car that somebody has, or you are just like, wow, so and so's got a nice BMW. would it be better for me to say, hey, Raider, don't want that, or hey, let's sit down, let's figure out how you can get your own BMW?
Mm-hmm.
I found myself at a young age being quick to say, hey, don't act like that, versus, okay, I see how you feel. Now, how much do you think that car costs? Oh, okay. So how much do you think that you have to make to earn that car for yourself? Okay. Well, if you go this, you'll put yourself in position to do that. And what I found is, if I can get in, and do I think that it sticks every single time? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. But it doesn't stop me from trying.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the hard part for me as a coach and as a parent, is sometimes if it doesn't work one time, then we just abandon it. And I'm like, you know what? Keep going, keep trying, keep trying. And so in that regards, my culture killers, what I try to do is figure out, okay, if somebody is super hyperactive and they're not paying attention and they're disrupting my team, well, then I'll change the drill and I will make them my demo person.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden they go, oh, okay, what do you want me to do? And next thing you know, instead of ripping their head off, instead of saying, okay, everybody fine, go run foul poles, now I've tried to get this athlete to buy in. I've turned their strength into something that was a distraction, and now it's become something that now the team can go, oh, hey, great job, Johnny. And next thing you know, we've kind of flipped the script and allowed that athlete to flourish better than immediately going, don't do that.
Yeah.
Eyes on me. I need you to stare over here. Well, maybe that's their way of learning. Maybe that's the way that their natural nervous tick happens. I mean, we had a girl out there, she was nervous as all get out, and you could read it, and doing everything I can to just set her mind at ease, because this is her day one, and all she's heard is how hard Raph is. And so I can tell that every single moment she's waiting for Raph to tell her to do something that is just awful. Like, oh, this is it. Oh, here it comes. Oh, here it comes. Calm down. We're not doing anything difficult today.
Mm-hmm.
We're just going to work on teaching. And so just breaking down those walls for her. So the culture killers, I try to flip the script. I try to turn it around and figure out, okay, you're jealous of this. Well, you know what? Let's use that jealousy for, okay, Chris, you're going to take a water break because you did so awesome at that last set. Well, I want to take a water break too. Okay, well, you can. Show me this set. And next thing you know, they do that set and it's a win-win, versus just being jealous and trying to tell somebody not to, quote unquote, covet something else. Okay, covet it, but let's figure out how we can train smarter and work towards doing what you want.
Time out. Tex here at Train Heroic headquarters, meeting with the team to talk about the coaching experience that I'm able to provide for my athletes. So if you're a coach and want to put your program out there on an app that athletes actually enjoy using, Train Heroic's for you. I've been using it since 2014, delivering literally over tens of thousands of workouts to athletes, and the Train Heroic allows me to provide the unique coaching experience that I want to. Uploading video, providing coaching feedback, directions, and building a community. That's why I love Train Heroic. And if you want to take your athletes where they can't take themselves, that they want to go, head to trainheroic.com/captains and check out how you can deliver programming to them. And now back to the show. Ready, and rip.
Yeah, I like that shuffling and mixing behaviors. And again, thinking through this stuff, I then took a note from the book way back from 2014, where you referred to as calculated coaching. And there was a day our group wasn't feeling it, and I was included in this. And you're like, okay, let's go outside, and neglected all the warm up, the prudency, right, the build, and it's like, no, you're not valuing my time. And then you ran it, just dead sprinted us. So then with that mindset of calculated coaching, and like I have phase development over season in our dynamic warm-up instead of the same routine every 10 minutes, every practice. All right, 4 weeks we're here, 4 weeks we're here. Then 3 weeks we're ready to go. We've developed
athleticism, improved it, and you didn't even know it. It's just 10 minutes.
And it keeps their head involved.
So the value was not there. Certain individuals, especially senioritis, is kicking in, and the rest of their kids that are not playing, their friends that are not playing a spring sport, and then now they're asked to do this difficult thing, difficult in their mind, and then it's like, all right, so mixed it up, and we started the practice with stick work. So it's simple stick work. We're moving, we're shaking, we're getting our chili hot, our heart rate's up, and we're sweating. And then now we're going to do 10 minutes, since we're already warmed up, we're going to do 10 minutes of training. So instead of gradually ramping up the movements and the progressions, it's, no, you're ready.
Let's get after it.
So, okay, you didn't value my 10 minutes here. Well, I'm going to show you a different side where this is the strength and conditioning coach that's stepping in. So aiming to mix it up and help them just have build perspective of, like there's different shades that I can apply to this. I'm not always the, apathetic, happy-go-lucky, progressive, let's fail fast. And then it's, okay, you want to be you want a hard-ass coach? I got the gear, and we're going to kick it into it. So different tools in framing it as calculated coaching from the perspective way back when. And there was always breakthroughs that I felt, and then you saw similar behaviors and patterns step in. So it was like, all right, well, these lessons take time. It's not a one and done thing, especially when it comes to confidence, behavior, stepping up and saying something, just acting like a captain would, in my perspective, in my mind. So a lot of growth, even though the games weren't there. It was a great year for me, but a lot of tools, just reflecting and remembering, and like, all right, let's aim to grow from this versus get frustrated and internalize it myself.
Well, the interesting part is coaches by nature are control freaks. Well, that's just what we do. We try to control all the variables, and we are the first person to fail when it comes to preparing. It was really interesting. I was talking to a couple of coaches and a couple of scouts, and they, from the outside, I look like a helicopter parent because I'm filming Raider, I'm telling Raider what to do, things like that, as a young person. So, I mean, he's 7 years old, and I'm like, hey, do this, you got to do that. Hey, 8 years old, you got to do this. Well, that's how people know me. But what they have now, because I'm already labeled as a helicopter parent, when I was talking to a couple of these coaches, they were like, yeah, so-and-so said that you're their, favorite helicopter parent. And I said, I'm not a helicopter parent. That's a mistake. I said, I'm an eagle parent. And this is a self-applied term. And they go, well, what do you mean by that? And I said, my job is to teach Raider how to soar on his own. And they go, oh. I said, everything that I do, I'm trying to promote my athletes to make better decisions. We as control freaks are so quick to say, do this. No, don't do that. Do this. Well, we have to let them make that choice. We have to let them fail. We have to let them not warm up correctly so that they understand, crap, I just drew the ire of my coach. I did that. Nobody told me not to warm up. Nobody told me not to play grab ass. Nobody told me not to be on time. I made those decisions. And so as a coach, as a parent, my job is to make sure that they understand that, because if they don't, the natural human mind says, Raph is an asshole. I'm not an asshole. I'm only playing the game that you chose to play. You walked in these doors. My job is to help you move better. My job is to make you a better athlete. You made the decision to walk through those doors lacking intent, lacking purpose, lacking a sense of urgency to develop and to chase your dream. And if you do that, you are making the choice to bring out the worst of your coach. And Raider's in a perfect scenario where I say, listen, Raider, I have technical knowledge. I can be the coach who coaches you technically. Hey, turn your foot a little bit this way and we'll get more power here. Turn your knee this way and we'll get more speed. But if you don't want that, if you want to draw the ire of your coach, then that is your choice. And when I put it that way, he starts to make better choices. He starts to do things like, oh, well, my dad is going to take me to practice, so let me make this easier. Let me wash the dishes. And I'm like, great job, kid. You know what? Your mom is going to take you to your game this weekend, and you decide to go cut the grass because you want to make it easier on her. Like, to me, when I look at things like that, then I know we're doing the right thing because he's making that initiative. We talk about initiative all the time, and it's such a fleeting thing. We as coaches and parents need to understand there's a huge difference between a good friend of mine is a downrange dog trainer. And he said, I remember when I got Kino, he goes, do you want Kino to be well behaved or do you want him to be obedient? I said, what's the difference? He goes, obedient, he'll do what you want him to do. He might do some other shit that you don't like, and if that's a pit bull, that's a bad scenario. Or do you want him, the most of the time, do the right thing? I go, do the right thing. He goes, you want a well behaved, you want Kino to make choices on his own. And that stuck with me. That stuck with me as a dog dad, and then that stuck with me as a coach. I said, you know what? I don't need Raider to be obedient. I don't need him to sit there and sit when I tell him to sit. I need him to go, okay, I should sit now because of this, this, and this. And that's the way I coach. I want my athletes to start to understand, hey, when you turn your knee in, it'll help this. And then all of a sudden, a guy like Jack is super smart, and he'll go, oh, okay. And then I can see the gears turning. Goes, oh, well, when I'm loading, I go, that's exactly right. And that's kind of what I want to lead them to.
Yeah, that was a cool moment observing the session, is when you were giving him the technical cues, and then he brought it back to his swing. You didn't say, hey, when you're swinging. He was able to internalize that and then apply it to his performance.
Absolutely. And he'll go, oh, well, I noticed towards the end. So the conversation that you and I and Andrew had was, he says that he had a lot of trouble with his hip flying open. And so he would compensate by, he goes, if you saw that weird stance that he did where he was like way closed off, he goes, I do that because I can't turn my knee in on the back half of the season. And I was just like, I go, did you get beat a lot? And he goes, yeah. I go, well, let's try to fix this. If we can do this, this, and this, it'll give you a more 50-50 balanced stance. And now all of a sudden you're not closing it off just to try to get a little bit of internal rotation. And he's like, yeah. And so then from that point on, the rest of the workout was, oh, okay, Raph, is it doing it? Because I don't feel like it is. And then he would kind of fix it and do it. And okay, I'm in, I got it. So I thought that was a really cool thing for him to be able to go through.
Yeah. And
then now
led him to that.
Led him to it.
I do want to reflect on that 2014, because we had an opportunity. Northeast High School. Coach Jeremy, you got asked a favor. And to close the podcast, I'm going to give a little day in the life of my experience with you. But there was this brief moment in time where we had afternoons off. And there was this gap. And then you were asked a favor. And then you asked a favor of your staff. And it's like, all right, we can't not do this. These kids need it. And we stepped up. And I can't remember how long it was, whether 4, 6, or 8 weeks leading up to their spring ball. And I mean, it was a great experience that I'm glad I had the energy. I couldn't do it now, but glad I had the energy. But the kids, I mean, they truly needed it. I remember showing up day one. They were sprinting in socks on the field because they didn't have shoes. We were in the weight room, and the people under the stairs, under the freaking the stands, it was just rusted out, cinder block, closed off, no air conditioning room, slanted roof, and like this, there was holes in the stands steps, so whatever soot from people or weather was just coming down into this. Whatever I was breathing in, that's probably what's gonna give me lung cancer down the road. But kids were squatting in cleats because that was their only option. It was sandals and cleats. And Coach Jeremy, very enthusiastic, and he was in every workout session. He was every part of this, and his mission was to change that culture and change the beliefs of these young men. So now, in a dream scenario, you're stepping in and you're creating a culture from zero, or reframing, rebuilding, and flipping over a culture. What is your approach? Was that the first time you've done that? And what was step one in your mind?
It was definitely not. I would say that the perfect world scenario is you start at ground zero with the whole fresh set of eyes, fresh set of hearts. That with that being said, that never happens. That would never ever really ever happen. I don't know anybody who's ever been, because you're talking about the human mind and the human machine, and trying to separate those two. From a culture standpoint, it would never happen where you get to walk into a scenario where I'm breaking my own rule. You never say never. Never say never, but you would be very hard pressed to walk into a scenario where you are walking in with a clean slate. It just won't happen. Your very first step is to, number one, develop that trust, with the idea that that's planted a seed and that trust is grown over time. What I learned from that, and I carried with me all the way through the Olympics, is a lot of people would label bad scenarios as bad without the understanding that a lot of those kids needed direction. They crave direction. Oftentimes, and again, I don't want this to come off as bad, because anybody who knows me knows that I'm a dog dad. A dog will act poorly if it doesn't have its main things taken care of. It has to have food, it has to have shelter, and it wants direction. It has to have exercise, and it wants direction. So if you're not giving, and I say that as we are just the exact same as animals. The majority of us want direction. Like, tell me what I should be doing. And again, not an obedience thing, but tell me why I should be doing that. Let me make that choice. But I still want to know that I'm going in the right direction. And a lot of these kids will make bad choices because they just don't have that direction. And sadly, a lot of these kids want it. They want it. They truly, like, coach me up, Raph. Am I doing this right? Coach, take a look. Watch this. And it breaks my heart because a lot of these kids don't have it. They just don't. A lot of kids will shy away. A lot of coaches will shy away from that scenario. A lot of coaches will avoid that scenario. Parents will avoid that scenario. But there's some really, really good kids out there that just need somebody to tell them what to do. That's it.
Yeah. And creating a feedback loop when there wasn't one previously. They didn't know what was right. They didn't know what was wrong. So then they were pushing against anything, looking for a boundary.
Right.
And then even in that 2 hours that we had with them for however many training weeks it was, we established a boundary, and then, damn it, they were able to turn that program around.
They did fantastic.
And
they did fantastic.
All props to Coach Jeremy, just the energy and the love that he brought every single day. Like, I'm tearing up thinking about it. It was inspiring, where I was thinking more technical and how to improve these guys' movement. You were painting the picture of leadership, and then Jeremy, like, full trust in you, full trust in me to lead the technical side of things. And he was just, I'm here for love. I'm here to get guys standing up, motivated, and keeping them showing up, because it was hard. We didn't hold back in the training.
Right. And it's interesting because we as coaches and parents, we're so quick to positive, negative. Like, that's our go-to. Okay, when you screw up, I'm going to punish you. And when you do awesome, I'm going to reward you. Um, but when I watch really good coaches, they really blend the line between positive, negative, negative, positive, meaning they can withhold positive, and that's a negative thing, or they could sit there and say, listen, um, there's 20 gassers at the end of this training session. And everybody goes, oh my God, that's ridiculous, coach. And they know how bad it is because we've set it up and they've run gassers and they know that at least half a dozen people are going to throw up. But within this training session, I might say, but listen, every time somebody does an awesome job at that drill, I'm going to scratch one of those off. And next thing you know, they're making this conscious decision to be urgent, to do awesome. Hey, I don't care what it is, whether you run a fast time, whether you help out Mike, whether you pick somebody up. If I see something awesome going on, I'm going to take my finger and erase one of these little check marks. And now all of a sudden these kids are going, oh, watch this one, coach, watch this. And next thing you know, you're getting that true buy-in with leadership. And it's not fake leadership because at that young age, it's like, oh, Tex, you're really, really good athlete. You're our team captain. And it's like, no, that's not the team captain. It's the one I want to know the one who's going to do the difficult thing. And that's to say, hey, you know what? I'm online and I'm playing video games. And then all of a sudden I go, wait a minute, Chris, you're online with me. Don't you have a test tomorrow? Hey, Chris, get off the video games, go study. And it's hard for us because as a young person with this new age athlete, they avoid difficult. They avoid confrontation. They avoid, and it's like, that's the team leader. That's the captain. That's the one who's going to make something amazing happen that goes, you know what? You're right, Raph. You know what? I'm logging off right now. And he gets off and he goes and gets an A on his test and then he goes and thanks him. That's to me really, really amazing. But we have to set that up because a lot of young athletes they don't like that discomfort. They don't. And if we don't marry that with decision making, all you get is, Raph, you're an asshole because you make me go through discomfort in the weight room. No, I'm not. What I say this all the time, I'm a librarian. I'm just recommending books for you to read. Your job is to read it and how deep you read it and how much you learn and how much stuff you highlight and how many notes you take. That's on you. But I'm here to do that. If we don't mentor that, then all it becomes is, Raph, you're an asshole. Raph, you're an asshole because you caused me pain. And no, I didn't cause you pain. You're causing yourself pain, but that's a good thing. And if we don't mentor that, they're always going to be hesitant. They're always going to shy away from it.
And scene. That does it for part 1 of this episode with Raphael Ruiz. Stay tuned for part 2. Be sure to give Raph a follow on Instagram. Great movement tutorials, leadership development, and you can watch how he coaches and lead his son Raider through his baseball career. So on Instagram, it's raph.athleteasap, ASAP. So Raph, RAPH.athleteasap, ASAP. Absolutely check it out. A great follow with a wealth of knowledge. We'll be back with part 2. If you want to get ahead of that and start educating yourself on a lot of the topics we discussed today, check out my new course on why they're not listening, coaching today's athlete. Listen.captainsandcoaches.com for that new course. If you like the podcast and want to give back, all you have to do is leave us a rating or review. That does go a long way. Grateful for you listening. Very thankful to sit down with Raph and share that experience. So thank you for helping us raise the game. We'll see you next time. Bye.